Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of Naruto, the ultimate deterrent weapon. If you guys enjoy this what if, and want to see part 2 of it, comment down below, and let me know. The like goal for this video is 100 likes. So like this video, to let me know that you're interested in this series, and you want the next part. Then go ahead, and check out other what ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So let's start this video. It's been 13 years. 13 years since the dreaded kyuubi incident that struck the village. The force of nature itself, the colossal nine-tailed fox regarded as a demon, struck a major blow to the village's military might, as they suffered many casualties from it, but none hit them harder than the death of their strongest shinobi and Yondaime Hokage Namikaze Minato. But in its place, the village might have gained something or someone far greater. And the something that was far greater was in the hands of one Shimura Danzo. The old warhawk stood on the opposite side of a glass window looking into an all-white room. In the center of the room there was a pit filled with metal spikes, and dangling above it was a motionless figure completely hidden in a full-body straitjacket, if not for the strands of golden locks that poked through the hat drapings. Two nondescript root shinobi entered into the white chamber, situating themselves on top of the spikes, fingering their tantos at the ready. Danzo nodded to the loyal shinobi, before approaching the mic. We will be starting test 123 of the container's advancement. The seconds ticked by as if the drones were waiting for something to happen. Seeing that there was no change, they pointed their swords at the dangling individual. They were ordered to kill their target to the best of their ability, so that's the order they would carry out. Both leaped from the spikes they stood upon at a speed only a ninja could have, and held their swords to sever the figure, where the midsection would be. They reached the figure almost instantly at that range. The moment their blades were within inches of the individual's body, it was like time slowed down as the figure's eyes snapped open through the bandages. Everything changed from what was expected by most at that moment. There was the sounds of various noises, screams, metal clashing, and finally crunching noise. All the while Danzo watched expressionless, though his eyes started to twitch, flinching when the windows suddenly became coated in a spray of red from the bodily fluids of one of the unfortunate soldiers, or maybe even both of them. Another failure. One of the large metal spikes broke through the window and traveled to embed itself in the wall behind Danzo. Danzo Oji-san, that's not very nice. You started another test, while I was sleeping. The boy was sitting up on the side of the metal spike with his body still restrained, except for his legs. The shocking detail would be those blue eyes of his that had a glow about them that betrayed the boy's innocent demeanor. The other shocking detail would be that not a speck of blood could be seen upon the boy's body, yet inside the room was a massacre that only took less than a minute to be created. Uzumaki. Danzo uttered unreadably, while his other rude agents just stood at attention, while a few kept their eye on the boy. Uzumaki Naruto was the boy's name. He was 13 years old, and had been working with Danzo since he was 7. The boy should have been a mindless weapon of his, but he was just too willful and unpredictable, along with the fact they had a certain agreement in place. 6 years ago. Are you here to help me, or hurt me like everyone else? Danzo stood in front of a small boy who was dressed in nothing but rags, and was holding a bloodied metal rod of sorts. He was covered in a few cuts and bruises along his arms and cheek, however one would say he came off lucky. There were a few civilians around him, and a couple shinobi, and none were still breathing, some not even in one piece anymore. The boy looked tired and looked to have a wild look in his big yet exhausted blue eyes. The boy, despite the situation, gave off so much life that it was both eerie and inspiring. I mean, you know, harm boy. I simply wish to make you strong, so that you need not fear what might happen in your lonely nights. The boy twitched and gained a look of hope for long enough for Danzo to catch. Long enough so that he could see it shift into a level of defensiveness, as the boy's pupils turned into slits and his hair blew wildly. I've been on my own long enough, and betrayed enough to know when someone wants to use me. The ground under him started to shake, and crack as small tremors were sent through them from the one hand he had flat to the ground. Danzo looked unperturbed despite being slightly unnerved by the boy, and his overly aware response in general. I wouldn't like, as it is indeed my intention to turn you into a weapon. The old man said that I should forgive everyone, even after what they've done to me. Everyone has it out for me, and I feel like it has something to do with this. The boy pulled his shirt up, and showed a seal show up on his stomach, though it was fuzzy, and flickered in and out like static, oddly enough. Danzo's eyes widened slightly at seeing the boy even away of the seal. The boy grinned widely at seeing the man's surprise. I'm a kid, but I'm not stupid. You were on the old man's old team, right? You know what this seal is all about, don't you? Is that why you are here? You come at a moment when I'm weak to give me an off. You probably also waited till I should enough promise. Danzo started to discreetly pump chakra into his other eye in preparation. This boy was too smart for his own good. There was no way he would be able to harmlessly convince the child this time. The boy stood straight, and pointed the rod dead at Danzo. Hold on, you don't have to use any jutsu on me, you haven't even heard my answer yet. Danzo almost visibly stumbled at getting called out. He could sense my use of chakra. If he was more knowledgeable, then he might have even been able to figure out that existence of my recently acquired Sharingan. What is it, boy? He pouted at Danzo's tone. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, not Boy Databeo. I'll become this village's weapon, if on the deal, that you explain what this thing on my stomach is and that you give me some kind of compensation, whether it's food or money, so I can live better. Danzo thought it over, believing it was simple enough, but frowned. That's a simple trade-off, but I can just as easily destroy your mind and make you a loyal drone of mine by force. Naruto looked downtrodden hearing that before his expression showed furious backbone as he looked back up at Danzo and stood strong, sliding into a more offensive posture. Fine, then just try to control me. I promise it won't be easy for you. I'm all alone, so I have nothing left to lose. If I can't even decide my future, I might as well die now. He snarled as his fangs sharpened. Danzo couldn't believe his eyes when an almost invisible doom of energy formed around Naruto, and the traces of a chain made of chakra started to emerge out of his neck. This boy is like a caged animal, and he can even has the potential of the fabled chains of the Uzumaki apparently. Investing in this boy could definitely be a boon. Fair enough. Naruto blinked as he lost his threatening presence. Ha. I will give you a safe haven. But I will break you down and gauge your limits and break your body down, and if your mind breaks you will be controlled by me. However, if you make it to graduation age, I will allow you to become a shinobi of the leaf. Of course you will continue to attend the academy to keep Sarutobi unaware. Naruto looked at him with his big blue eyes holding traces of hope, suspicion, and loneliness. Someone was willing to work with him. Deal. Of the numerous tests, the boy passed all of them one way or another. The boy was a prodigy, and even had a semi-passive bloodline that he believed was unique to him along with the Uzumaki chakra chains. The Kekai Josho of a literally magnitude. The failure was on my part. The graduation exams are in a few days. Be sure that you attend them, so that I know at least some of these efforts weren't for naught. Naruto smiled at him happily as he watched him go. He closed his eyes and let out a deep breath before cracking his neck to the side sharply, and through pure power, the straitjacket was torn apart as he forced it off him with his arms and strength. This will be fun. I can be me now. The day had finally come as it was that time of year again for the next wave of possible Genin hopefuls. The classroom filled with civilian and academy students. It was a time of peace, and so there was no need for any of the students to graduate early. So everyone who was in the class pretty much knew each other for at least a couple years, but in most cases much longer than that. However, because of there being no incentive to grow, this both made a clear line in the skill level between the civilian students and the clan students, but it also made the clan students not as strong as they could be, because there was hardly any stress or incentive to grow. So everyone's skill progressed pretty much at steady rates, that curved off in the end. Though particular students that would not apply to this would possibly be the last Uchiha Sasuke. He was one of the few that pushed himself to be better, and so grew faster than the others. However steeper this rate still became a steady one. With his drive so clouded with anger and revenge, along with the fact that he's on his own and can only teach himself, so much his potential was also stagnated. Revenge can be a powerful driving force to make one stronger, but he didn't even know who or where to direct it correctly. The rest of the actual shinobi children, it was harder to gauge their potential for the most part, as they either hadn't shown enough drive or were too socially closed off to measure. Some however were so socially open that it made them an eyesore. I'm sitting next to Sasuke-kun forehead. Ah, the blonde Yamanaka heir. She was a pretty one for sure, and had a thing for fashion. However, though she was from a prominent clan, and an heir, she couldn't be discerned much from a civilian student outside of her clan techniques. She was just too distractible, and had quite the mouth on her. One could only hope that will change. Move it, Ino Pig. Sasuke is much better off being next to me than you. Sakura Haruno, a civilian of unimportance but rendered important because of her loud-ass voice and pink hair. The other students either watched or groaned in annoyance as the two went at it again. The sound of a stack of books hitting the desk echoed through the cloud as Iruka's eyebrow twitched in irritation. You two be quiet and sit down. They flinched in fear as Iruka's head grew to a comically large size for a second, as if to emphasize his irritation. He looked around to see the classroom die down, and nodded with a smile only to notice another eyesore. Student wasn't present. Has anyone seen Naruto? The door slid open as a figure walked in slowly. Sorry Iruka-sensei, I was running late, but then I decided to just make a belated entrance like a common cliché in other fanfiction stories. A cliché in what? Wait, Naruto. His eyes widened, while most of those in the classroom did the same to varying degrees. They all knew the Naruto who wore the I'm Special one size too small orange jumpsuit that with a few changes could easily resemble the Odyssey a baby would wear. The one in front of them was largely different, though still had a certain oddness about him personality-wise, appeared much more in control of what he was doing and aware. He stood at 5'3", standing just a couple inches taller than Sasuke. His hair now went down to his jawline yet kept its characteristic spikes, now shading his eyes. He wore a high-collar orange jacket with black trim, and zippers along the waist and breast. For pants, he wears black jogger-type pants that narrowed at his ankles into his black shinobi sandals. Some of the girls blushed as not only did he look good in his clothes, but he actually looked a little older and a lot more attractive in general. Naruto. Yes, that's me. He closed his eyes and smiled as everyone bombarded him with questions. Why are you taller? I'm just standing straighter. Why is your face and voice a little more mature now? I'm going through puberty. Since when? Last night. Why is your hair like that? I finally washed it, but it's like several inches longer. I know, right? Naruto obliviously responded in a happy tone, causing several to grow frustrated. Seeing that they wasted enough time, Iruka coughed into his hand. Alright Naruto, it's great to see you can perform the henge that saves time. Now please go to your seat, so we can get through the rest of class. He tilted his head in confusion. But Iruka-sensei, this isn't a henge. He turned to the sides and a poof of smoke erupted before the old Naruto they were familiar with, who was shorter, was seen. My old appearance has been a henge for the past, 6 months I guess. 6 months? They were all shocked, and not all of them believed him. Iruka believed him, but was dumbfounded as to how he didn't notice. Since I'm already here, I can do the other jutsu tests as well. Naruto turned back into his current self as smoke dispersed again. He put his hands together in the ram sign and strained a bit as a vein on his temple bulged. Iruka let out a breath as it looked like even with the changes Naruto's growth as a ninja hadn't really changed. Henge? Iruka was pleasantly surprised when there were 4 puffs of smoke, and now there were 5 Narutos standing in front of him. The forms of 4 of them wavered for a second for a reason he wasn't sure, but that quickly vanished, and they were from then on indistinguishable. Great job, Naruto. You must have worked hard before you could barely even make one clone, let alone the necessary 2. Naruto rubbed the back of his head and laughed as the clones dispelled, fading out of existence, getting Iruka's attention again. Yeah, this is still pretty hard for me to do because of my chakra after everything I've done. What about his chakra? Not the amount of it isn't the problem. Is it the demon? Well then, the last ninjutsu for the test was the Kourimi, right? Iruka nodded and Naruto got a sneaky look in his eyes. He put his hands in his pockets and fell back. When he was at a 45 degrees angle with the ground, there was a pop of smoke and a yelp of surprise before Sasuke appeared in his place, falling to the ground. Everyone's head snapped back to see in Sasuke's seat was Naruto with his feet propped up on the desk. I figured since the best went first, that Sasuke can go now. He was met with glares from a few, primarily Sasuke and Sakura, and looks of astonishment from a number of others. He struggled a bit to prefer the clone technique, but still formed more than the necessary amount, and was able to perform the other 2 jutsu seamlessly. And if I looked right, then his eyes were also closed when he did the substitution, and he switched with a living body, which is a whole another level of difficulty that many jonin can't even do. In the jutsu category alone, I think even with the one issue it's still worth above a perfect score. After that, the rest of the class proceeded with their own portions of the ninjutsu test, which only served to turn Naruto back into a social pariah, but in a different way. Seeing the believed dead last perform the test so easily urged the rest of the class to one-up him, only for them all to ultimately fail, creating a wave of clout to their pride and self-esteem. Though a few weren't bothered by it. The only one who was able to successfully match Naruto was Sasuke in the clone jutsu, as he was able to create the same amount, though with some slight straining for a different reason. He was able to do the other jutsu flawlessly, but not without seals. But Naruto had already expected that. It did catch his eye, however, that the Hyuga heir could do a transformation without seals, and both Shino and Ino along with Sasuke were able to bring the substitution jutsu down to 1 seal, though with varying degrees of difficulty. He suspected that with Hinata's heritage that she may have been able to do the same if her self-esteem lasted enough to try, as she did it before she did the substitution. So really the only objects of potential strength he saw in the class overall were the Uchiha and the Hyuga for the specific category. Naruto held up his headband and let it dangle from his hand as he stared at it curiously, letting catch the light. He passed and was a major upset to the rest of the class. They expected he would boast and brag about it too, but what further confused some of them was the fact that he just looked on in interest, as if it didn't really matter to him either way. His grades prior were almost completely trash. In fact, he was actually failing. His performance on the tests today were the complete opposite, however. He had over a perfect score on the ninjutsu portion. He earned an above perfect score on the physical tests as well, and a high grade on the written tests. He also scored perfect on the projectile test, even though he somehow accidentally threw some of the kunai were flaws and rough marks throughout all that he did, but the things he succeeded in he far outpaced the majority of the rest of the class, to where it didn't even matter. Iruka was congratulating them, while also reading off their team names. Naruto leaned back in his chair as he had a feeling where he would be placed based on his scores. He had been failing the class. He only passed because of his performance in the test, so he was still the dead last. Team 7 will consist of Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke, and Uzumaki Naruto. You will be led by Hatake Kakashi. Oh, Kakashi? Old man talked about him a few times. He tied his headband around his neck before leaning back and going to sleep. What can I find to eat? I could get ramen, or I could hunt something. Now that I'm a ninja I can do either, and what's best is I have no curfew. Too bad old man Danzo had work to do tonight. Naruto walked through the woods and found a small clearing with a stone in the middle of it. Deciding to eat later he went and sat down on the stone looking up at the night sky. This is the start of when the rest of the world knows who I am. I might not have gotten this far the way that I am if it wasn't for the old man's help. Gigi helped too, but he's always busy with his Hokage duties. Haha, I bet everyone was surprised to see how I really am. I can't wait to see their faces when they see what I can really do. He sat up and crossed his legs while holding out his palm to look at. My peers will learn one way or another of what I contain. I guess it's about time for me to finally greet my tenant. He closed his eyes and went into a meditative state while still being subconsciously aware of the life around him. Centering his mind and lowering his breathing, meditating was something he had gotten used to over the years and was something he could do with ease. He opened his eyes again to see that the scenery had changed to that over a dank and dark sewer. In front of him was a massive gate with a seal array on its lock. What it contained was pretty clear to him. Well, it was easier to get here than I thought. So my container has finally showed himself. The voice, while not projected to be loud, still reverberated through the area as a massive creature approached the gate coming into view. It snorted when it took in the sight of Naruto. TCH and only mildly decent. Hi there. Nice to meet you. The beast stumbled before it refocused and glared at him. Nice to meet you. Do you dare mock me? Do you know who and what I am? Naruto put his hands in his pockets and started to rock back and forth on the balls of his feet almost like a restless child. But you are supposed to greet new people, right? That's how you make friends. Doesn't matter if you are human, animal, or demon. Raised and treated as the latter two more so than the first one, it makes no difference to me. So I say again. Nice to meet you, Kyuubi. Naruto shrugged honestly, showing how little it mattered to him, though his gaze matured and sharpened when he said that last bit. The demon fox actually looked guilty for a split second, before looking slightly irritated. And just why, might I ask, would I ever want to be friends with a dirty ningen? Naruto stared at the scowling fox for several seconds. He then continued to do so for even longer, to the point that the fox actually shifted and started to feel slightly self-conscious. Why are you? Are you male or female or some other third thing? Some other third thing? Annoyed, the giant fox shouted at him. I am genderless. Why is it even important? I am a beast of chakra given consciousness. Now you're female. What? The fox's voice died as Naruto just dismissed the beast. Did you just assume my? Yeah, you are definitely a girl. Which is good though. With how rich and glossy your coat looks whenever you grow irritated, that shows that either that's a physical disposition or you are covering up your appearance, which is harder to do so when you lose track of your emotions. Also, your scent is really nice, and one of a female, and I mean this in an unperverse way, but if I were a fox I'd be excited right now. I hate to say it, but you are a lot more intelligent than I expected. I get that a lot. Now then, will you answer me or not? He spoke in a serious tone again as the Kyuubi sighed in defeat. I've already been sealed by a human. I suppose I don't have much more pride to lose. His body broke apart into red yuki that swirled in a funnel kicking upwind, while Naruto watched blankly. The energy condensed and packed down to coalesce into a female form. The figure was no young woman around the age of 10 with messy red hair and thick black eyelashes. Since she was of prepubescent age, her attractiveness could be described as cute more so than anything. Her nails were naturally shaped to be sharp like claws, and her lips were flushed pink and pouty. She sat on her knees in a raggedy, oversized white shirt to keep her modestly as she glared up at Naruto from the other side of the gate. Two little fox ears sprouted from her head with a matching tail. Their happy Naruto stared at her with half-lidded eyes, showing a lack of interest, which completely clashed with the fact that blood started dripping from his nose. This caused the fox girl to blush and start to scoot back defensively. Yes. Why is your nose bleeding? He wiped his nose and coughed into his hand. Sorry, lost track of myself for a second. Just so we can get this out there, you're legal, correct? I'm changing back. Wait. I'm sorry, I'll stop. Naruto tried to keep a smile off his face. He wasn't really all that sorry. But why are you a little girl? I thought you'd be older. I rarely have a need to take a humanoid form, so age takes a bit for me to get right. Most of you humans look the same to me. But to know. Now then, how would you like to get out of here? What? Naruto's head snapped to the side for a second as his eyes narrowed, and he turned serious. Hold on, I have to take care of something real quick. He vanished from the mindscape in a burst of wind, causing the small girl to cry out. Wait, you can't just say that then leave. Naruto opened his eyes as a figure jumped out of the trees to land in front of him. From their breathing he could tell they had been traveling a bit. Seeing the white-haired Chunin, Naruto looked on confused as they tried poorly to hide their contempt for him. Mizuki-sensei. I mean Uzumaki-san, what are you doing out here? I always wonder the forests here. I feel at home in nature, especially since I never really felt at home anywhere else. Naruto answered with a degree of innocence. The answer filled Mizuki with a sick joy, while deep inside Naruto the fox stirred uncomfortably. So the demon brat really is all alone. As he should be. The perfect scapegoat. Hey Naruto-kun, congratulations for passing your test so spectacularly. I am here to award you with this scroll of jutsu. It's filled with the strongest as a present for promising shinobi like you. He gave his best eye smile at Naruto, while taking out a large scroll off his back. I already copied parts of the scroll, but I wouldn't be able to get away with it all. Better to cut my losses and dump the blame on the demon. Naruto turned his head to look at the scroll and stared off at it for an awkward amount of time. Mizuki tapped his foot impatiently at the boy's lack of response, though he grit his teeth into a smile. What is it? What's wrong? It was only a matter of time before Anbu caught up and he was exposed. Naruto took a few more seconds longer than answering before his eyes shifted to Mizuki, having a calculating edge to them. Do you think I'm an idiot? Just how exactly did you get your hands on the forbidden scroll? Mizuki flinched at getting called out that fast. What? Ah, I get it. You betrayed the village and stole the scroll. Probably to take it to some other village, where you can seek sanctuary. Not a bad plan. After all, you are a pretty worthless shinobi, so no village would ever take you in without some kind of deal. Mizuki's face quickly turned to growl at Naruto for insulting him in such an uninterested manner. So the demon shows his true intelligence. He summoned a giant shuriken, and sliced it down on Naruto, who quickly somersaulted out of the way with a grace, as he flew through the air, and landed on a tree branch with his hands in his pockets. You just called me a demon. I believe that violates Jiji's law. Sorry, but for your piling up list of transgressions I have to kill you now. Hahaha, a cocky brat aren't you? You think just because you are a ninja now that you stand a chance I'm a chunin? An elite ninja while you're hardly a genin. He threw the giant shuriken at Naruto, only for him to catch it easily through the ring, with his foot. Nice throw. Mizuki growled and threw his second shuriken at Naruto in rage. Don't mock me, you demon trash. Naruto snapped his leg down, flinging the shuriken back at the other one as they deflected off each other. Why do you keep calling me demon? I didn't even do anything to you. Don't play dumb. Do you really not know? Mizuki jumped up onto the branch at Naruto with a kunai out. Naruto leaned from side to side, dodging them with a tired level of skill. 14 years ago, the nine-tailed demon fox attacked the village and massacred many, even killing our Hokage. In order to beat the demon, it was sealed into a small child. You are that child. You are the demon reborn. Mizuki grabbed Naruto's head in one hand, before thrusting his other hand holding the kunai at his face, trying to catch him, while he was surprised. Instead, the kunai was kicked out of his hand sharply by Naruto's foot, that shot up in an angle that showed his flexibility. Cool. But then if I'm a demon? He snapped his leg out again, hitting Mizuki's arm, and shattering his wrist, causing him to scream out in pain. Naruto's eyes slitted as his hand shot out his pocket, and grabbed Mizuki around his neck, choking him. Naruto jumped up in the air, before spinning and throwing Mizuki down to hit the ground in a cloud of dust. The man coughed, before he vomited blood, when Naruto dropped from the air, and drove a knee into his ribcage with enough force to break the bones, and crack the ground beneath him. If I'm a demon, then how could trash like you ever even stand to me, let alone be worth fighting? Gargling in his own blood, Mizuki spat at Naruto. You monster. Naruto's head tilted as his face shadowed, and all that could be seen was two glowing slitted pupils baring down on him. A monster? You might not be far off with that one. Naruto grabbed a hold of Mizuki's shirt, and threw him smacking against the base of a tree. He tried to raise his guard, but fear overtook him as he heard a buzzing in his ear. Naruto slid across the ground at him at high speed, instantly on him in that short distance with his arm held out. Come back to life when you're worthy of killing. Naruto's hand zipped at Mizuki, and from a distance there was a small flash, and an echo of a booming noise. So this is the forbidden scroll. Naruto held it in his hands now and looked it over. A few seconds later he tossed it carelessly behind him. I don't need it. As if they were waiting right there, the scroll was suddenly caught out of the air as a small squad of Anbu showed up. Naruto turned to them and waved happily. Good, you're here. You guys can take care of this then. Naruto walked past them as they felt the urge to shiver. The battle zone before them resembled the brutal murder of a man by some rampaging beast. The lower half of Mizuki's body was still resting against a tree trunk. The upper half of his body, along with the rest of the tree, was blown clean away to scatter the grounds behind it. Naruto-kun, you were this strong? Sarutobi's eyes were widened in shock as he stared at Naruto through the viewing orb. Oh, believe me when I say Hiruzen that the boy is a near invaluable asset. Sarutobi wheeled in his seat at Danzo's arrival as he glared at his old rival. Danzo, are you responsible for this? I knew I would regret not shutting down your operations. I swear if you have harmed the boy that I assure you that I have done nothing to the boy other than give him occasional protection and a place to grow, which is more than what you gave him. A confident weapon is way more useful than an unhealthy, socially broken one. Danzo snorted and Hiruzen actually flinched in guilt. Naruto-kun may not be broken, but he didn't seem all that sound mentally either. He decided not to ask Danzo about that for now. I will let this slide only because this benefited Naruto-kun, but don't think I won't be keeping an eye on you, so that you don't brainwash the young boy. It is not as if I have not already tried, but the boy seems immune to such things. Danzo nodded his head with an unreadable expression. Of course. The boy after all is this village's future, and nothing is more important than securing this village's future, which brings me on to another matter we must discuss. Where were we? Oh right. We were talking about. Naruto appeared back in his mindscape after he entered his apartment. His words fell short as he now saw Kyuubi in her Yokai form, having added a few years to it, to where she now looked 16, and was now the definition of alluring, with a healthy female body with supple breasts, a full yet tight ass, and longer hair. Her lips were also flesher with a dark lining to her upper lip, reminding him of the mouth of her fox form. She also had small whisker marks upon her cheeks. She blushed a little and couldn't make eye contact, while Naruto's mouth watered before he caught himself quickly and grinned. Are you trying to bribe me into because I have to say you're a natural? Naruto gave her a thumbs up while she growled at him, trying to pull her shirt down, which was now too small, and so hugged her chest, and had trouble covering her delicate. No, I'm just adjusting. And I rarely have a need for clothes, so I'm not used to making them. Ah, okay. Naruto nodded as he looked around at the now dry dungeon that she was in. As if responding to some silent command, the scene quickly changed to that of a forest filled with lush vegetation and gentle sunlight, though she was still in her cage. Alright, I believe I asked you if you would like to get out of here. She glared at him in suspicion but nodded. Well then, how would you like to help me out a bit? In exchange I could, let's say, extend the range of your leash. Why would I help you out? I could just let you die. Even work against you at a critical moment. Sure, it would affect me too, but I'd probably respawn eventually. She smirked at the idea. She wasn't sure if she really would survive his death, nor was she actually too happy about the idea of him dying, but she would exact some control from this deal where she could. I suppose you are right. But let's say you do decide to hinder me. Naruto's eyes shadowed, and with a silent step he entered the cage, which made the fox girl stumble back at how boldly he threw caution to the wind. I too can make this very difficult for you. His hair started to flare out wildly, and her hair bristled in the sense of danger as she heard it buzzing in her ears. She growled and quickly grew to her giant fox form. Her real one, which was more red than orange with darkened paws. Do you dare threaten me, mortal child? Suddenly a chain shot out the ground around her neck, tightly choking her and pulling her down to the ground with a crash. She yelped in surprise and saw Naruto standing right in front of her snout. I'm not just threatening, I'm giving you a promise. Naruto's eyes slitted and bore down on her dangerously as an ethereal metal chain formed around his own neck, and he grinned wildly. The chain on her own neck glowed brightly before her Biju form was shattered, and she was instantly brought back down to a teenage girl. Before she could regain her bearings, she cried out when Naruto roughly pulled on the chain that now acted as a leash on her by her neck, and held her up to eye level. With the look in his eyes, and with how fast the situation was switched on her, she actually felt a certain amount of fear. I'm smart enough to know that I can't take you on in a straight fight, but in here I don't have to. As long as you are my tenant, I can suppress you, and drag you through the mud, and tan your lovely hide with these same chains. He held out his other hand in a clawing motion, and it started to vibrate and glow white, before he held it over his own stomach, as the seal appeared, and the area around them started to tremble and fall apart, and she twitched as she felt like she was being electrocuted. After a few seconds, Naruto removed his hand. I think it's clear I have other ways of making things worse for you here as well. So tell me now, will we be able to get along? She squirmed a little and shivered from his tone in her ears. It was sadistic and she could feel him grinning. She nodded her head submissively, looking down. But now what is your name? Kuromi. Dark beauty. Cute name. The Kami seems like it would make more sense though, but I like it anyway. He let go of Kuromi, who now loose stood a little shakily fingering the chain collar and looking nervous. He smiled brightly, dismissing the previous tension. Now then, I ask one more time, would you like to get out of here? She bowed slightly and was a lot more agreeable this time. Yes. What would you ask of me? She felt disgusted with herself for her weakness, but at the same time she somehow for some reason enjoyed how her container actually had the balls to manhandle her like that. All I ask is that you be someone I can talk to. Her eyes widened, and she looked up at him to see if he was joking. He gave her a nice smile as he rubbed the back of his head. I don't really have friends and you are the closest person to me, and you probably know quite a bit about me already. I don't care if you dislike me, as long as you don't act against me. I'd like to at least be friends, but if you don't want to then that's fine, as long as I can still talk to you. He genuinely just wanted to interact with her. She would get a degree of freedom, and the only catch was to help him, and be his friend, which she supposed might benefit her too. Seeing her think it over while she subconsciously rubbed her neck, made him drop the chain and look apologetic. Sorry. I went a little overboard there. She looked at him oddly for a moment, before she started to laugh softly into her hand. Alright then, I'll be your partner, Naruto-kun. Naruto calmed down and gave a soft smile that radiated with hers. She had a blush on her face, though it was hard to tell in her small fox body. Remember Kuromi-chan. If I die while your mind is outside my body, the backlash could destroy your consciousness. She was blushing because Naruto was topless, stretching in the mirror. He was quite toned and while not built up since he was still growing, he was still quite lean and defined. All in all, a perfect specimen of health. I already told you I won't kill you. I'm just giving you a warning in general. I am a shinobi now after all, and though I don't plan on ever dying, there are dangers everywhere. She sat on his bed and turned into her yokai form, while wearing a sleeveless black top that hugged her chest, and had a zipper going up the middle and white shorts. The chain was thick, and held around her neck now as a semi-permanent accessory to complete her look. She felt the black made her eyes and fur stand out more. She crossed her long legs, which Naruto stared at in the mirror for a second, before putting his shirt and jacket on. A moment later his own chain appeared around his neck, though his hung looser. Well, let's get going, shall we? Hatake though is notorious for being late, but I don't want to be late just in case he shows up on time. She nodded and jumped at him and in a swirl of energy, landed on his shoulder as a fox kid. His eye twitched as he glanced at her. Why did you do it like that? Because it's fun. Now I hope you put on a good show for your queen. Yes, my queen. He mocked her, but the tone he put into it was still enough to make her blush. Having a friend for once might have its benefits. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed. If you want a next part of this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. And also check out the other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.
It's not a game, it's a